Hello and welcome to the second installment of Light in August by William Faulkner, where I will be discussing my reading of chapters 2 through 6. Before we begin, I would like to say that I am sorry for mischaracterizing your profession, Brian, and also would like to point you all to Brian's video on chapters 2 through 6. Where I think he does a masterful job of going chapter by chapter in discussing the plot line as well as his impressions of numerous characters and what he feels that they should be. I love his enthusiasm as well as his insightful knowledge. I know I enjoyed that video, and I watched it a second time not too long ago preparing to make mine. As I said, I would recommend you go and check out his video, which I will link down below. I know that Alan has made a video as well, and I've been going back and forth with Alan. He has, put so many great thoughts and given me different camera lenses to look at this novel through. Pointed out some themes and asked great discussion questions. So I know he posted a video as well, but I did not watch his video because I already have so much going through my head. I just wanted to summarize my own thoughts here and tell you what impressions this book has made on a first-time reader of Faulkner. So let's get to it. When we left off on chapter 1, I had stated that I was very enthralled in the storyline as we were following a character of Lena Grove as she tries to track down the father of her soon-to-be baby, and she makes her way from Alabama to Jefferson, Mississippi. The second chapter starts off at the mill factory where Byron Bunch is discussing the work environment with Milton, and they both give us insight into a character called Christmas. My initial thoughts were that Christmas might be in fact the person that Lena Grove was looking for, and shortly after we have identified Christmas, a new character comes along onto the mill, and that is Joe Brown. Through this interpretation, we learn as readers to trust Byron Bunch and his fellow workers' interpretation of these characters. The plot line moves forward where we eventually find out that Christmas and Joe Brown have teamed up, and they are in a working partnership, having left the mill to sell bootleg whiskey. As we move through these chapters, we are also introduced to a new character of Hightower, who is a religious preacher man who refuses to leave his town after being exiled from it because of his wife's adultery and eventual death. We learn interesting relationships that are taking place between Byron Bunch and Hightower, as well as the relationship between Christmas and Joe Brown, now that they have come into a partnership to sell bootleg whiskey. Halfway through these chapters, we are also reintroduced back to Lena Grove as she meets Byron Bunch at the mill, and through their conversation they supposedly come upon an agreement that Joe Brown is in fact the person that she's after. During this realization, we also learn that Byron Bunch is in fact in love with her. So we have a lot of different connections being kind of formulated here, and a lot of synopsis into the characters. We leave off finally with a chapter devoted to the burning of the house and to a disagreement between Joe Brown and Christmas. The final chapter, chapter 6, gives us a glimpse into the life of Christmas and his upbringing, which is troublesome, and his identity is sort of vague. The best way that I would summarize these chapters is Faulkner trying to make connections between different characters as well as giving us insights into numerous people that he feels we should be interested to further go along with the story. And so now I will give my kind of impression of what I'm reading. As you guys know, I left chapter 1 being fully engrossed, and was really looking forward to reading further. Unfortunately, chapter 2 and 6 had an opposite effect on me. I found a lot of flaws here. For one, I don't think the characters here are reliable, and when I say reliable, I mean not in the sense of that their actions are unpredictable, but in the sense of the way the author portrays them. They end up acting completely different. Obviously, making a statement like that, I feel like I should justify it, and that statement is made based on the meeting that took place between Byron Bunch at the mill and our main character, or a character that begins the story, Lena Grove. The problem I had with their meeting that took place and their introduction to each other is the fact that we have Byron Bunch, who we realize is a very religious man, a man who works hard, and a man who spends his weekends with Hightower. It is assumed that they have a lot of religious and intellectual talk during these meetings, but he's a character who doesn't involve himself with bars or with socialization with normal people. And it is evident by the fact that while everybody's at the bar, he's the one working at the mill. And this gives a great context for Faulkner to make an introduction between him and Lena, because due to his code of conduct, he would be the only one there. I also think that Faulkner uses Byron Bunch to discuss Christmas and Joe Brown and make us see them through his eyes, because he's supposed to be a man of hard work, religious, and a man of no interest. So he's giving us these impressions under the non-judgmental light. Byron Bunch, by falling in love with Lena Grove, changes from the neutral character that we expect him to be into a character of devotion and a character who now has an interest, which is uncharacteristic of somebody who keeps away from people. Now let's go back to Lena Grove. Lena Grove travels from Alabama to Mississippi. She is seen as being full of dust. She's dirty at this point. She's also starved, hungry. She's 5 months pregnant. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I would expect this woman, had she finally found a man who knew the person she was looking for, to track him down immediately. That's just the way I would expect a person to act, possibly even irate. But no, Lena Grove is completely calm here. She has no problem spending the night in Byron Bunch's bed while Lucas Birch is in town, and all of a sudden we are transferred from a character in chapter 1 who's driven and motivated, besides all the naysayers, to now being a character of who is willing to follow laws and other people's impressions and not go for what she wants. Like in my world, people who walk for miles upon miles, pregnant, starving, and finally reach their destination, then decide to lay in bed and not knock on the next door over for the person they made this journey towards. The other problem I have with Faulkner's characters are that they are almost one-dimensional. They're either good or they are bad. Through the introduction of multiple characters, a lot of them are rather bland. In the sense that they are negative or positive. The only character that I feel is coming to fruition here is Christmas, who I am rooting for now. Christmas is sort of a character who's stuck between the two worlds, the world of the white people that is segregated from the world of the black people, and so him being mixed race, as we learn, he doesn't fit in with the white people. He can never gather acceptance there, even though he reflects them more in the skin tone. And yet, because there's a negative stigma around black people and the fact that they have lesser rights and the fact that they live in worser towns, he rebels against them. In addition, the background of his hardships through growing up and the fact that he was left on a doorstep by his parents, never knowing his identity, we as a reader can't trust that anybody's perception of him is correct, because he finds out that he is half black only based on the teasing of other children in this household. So since nobody knows his parents, we as a reader can't really 100% be certain of his race, which I think makes for an interesting character, because there's guesswork left here, and there's intrigue and mystique, which all the other characters lack. And the reason I feel that they lack intrigue is because many of the characters within these pages, we as the reader are never told their true motivations behind their actions. For example, I have no idea what's up with Joe Brown's head, what motivates him, what motivated him to run away, what motivated him to take up factory work, what motivated him to go into business with Christmas, other than money. But money must lead somewhere, and what is his motivation for accumulating this money? Why would a man sell whiskey and become what probably today we would recognize as a drug dealer because of the prohibition? Why is he putting his life on the line for this money? What is this money going to lead him towards? I feel like as a reader we are left in the dark by the idea that Faulkner in his craft is withholding a lot of information. And if there was an interesting plot line or a quicker moving plot, or maybe at least one character that we as a reader could grab hold on to and find enough interest in, it could work if he withheld information about 5 other characters. But when he's trying to involve so many characters here and at the same time withholding information about everybody, it's hard to be interested. It's hard to have a guiding light. Also, he doesn't really do well with writing a good setting. The only thing that keeps a reader or myself going is that he does have really great little insights, because his characters are kind of molded so that he can process and tell you these little nuggets of information that he feels he should share with his reader, and the wisdom. I will read such a quote here to show just how elegantly he writes and gives us a clear and precise look into a person's actions and the way that their environment could shape them. This passage takes place when Byron Bunch is with Hightower and they're talking, and here he gives a little insight into a person's character. And I reckon this is my life too, the other said. But I know now why it is, Byron thinks. It is because fellow is more afraid of the trouble he might have than he ever is of the trouble he's already got. Yes, a man will talk about how he'd like to escape from living folks. But it's the dead folks that do him the damage. It's the dead ones that lay quiet in one place and don't try to hold him, and he can't escape from. This is Byron's insight into why Hightower decided to stick around when all the town was angry at him. It's because of his fear of what is the unknown is much greater than the hardship of dealing with his current situation. So these little insights are really well written, and at the same time so eye-opening. And I think this is the only thing that's kind of keeping me going with Faulkner, or holding my interest. I don't DNF books, and I don't plan to DNF this. Also, I know that for me personally, I tend to go on roller coaster rides with books. So a book that I may not like 200 pages in, I may love 300 pages in, I may get disappointed again 400 pages in, and in the end, who knows what my final decision is. But I don't think I'm the only reader who goes on roller coaster rides. So while making these videos, I think the point is to be as honest as I can and to give my true in-depth understanding of what the author is trying to accomplish, even if it may land me a lot of egg on my face in the next video. I don't enjoy bad-mouthing people or any of that, but there are definitely problems within this book. And because Faulkner's descriptions of characters puts an expectation on the reader of the way they will act, and then this expectation is broken, as well as Faulkner withholding information, is making me sort of frustrated with the text, and I'm getting second thoughts if Faulkner won the Nobel Prize because of his great writing, or because he was a man who understood his region better than any other writer. I will leave it at that, and I plan to make another video next weekend, hopefully with everything coming together and me being forced to change my expectation for the better, and my impressions to change gear and become positive. Thank you all, and hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think if you're reading along with us. I would be delighted if you could challenge some of my views. I know me and Brian have completely opposite views, and that's okay, because each book is different for each person, and I truly believe that. Therefore, let's cut it short and say goodbye.